Today is Monday, December 14th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia. Today is the first day of early voting in Georgia. We were at the polls this morning where Pastor Raphael Warnock and Ambassador Andrew Young both voted together. You will hear from both of them right here on the show. Also, Warnock and Ossoff, John Ossoff, held a joint rally at Turner Field, encouraging folks to get out there and vote, as John Ossoff also led a march to the polls in Gwinnett County. Speaking of Election Day, of course, we are covering all the issues. And of course, Joe Biden won Georgia. And today, the Electoral College met and certified that he is indeed President-elect of the United States. But Donald Trump and his minions, they continue to assert they actually have a shot at him overturning the election results. Ain't gonna happen. Bill Barr, the Attorney General for Trump, has announced he is resigning effective December 23rd. Also on the show, we'll talk with Ben Crump about a case of a black man being shot and killed in Texas. Folks, it is a jam-packed show, lots to talk about, and it is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia, where today began the first day of early voting. Of course, it will commence for the next 3 weeks all across Georgia. There are 3 races. There's, of course, the 2 U.S. Senate races, and there's a statewide race where an African-American is also running in that particular race. Of course, John Ossoff is running against Republican Senator David Perdue. Pastor Raphael Warnock of Ebenezer Baptist Church, he is running against Senator Kelly Loeffler. They, of course, have been traversing the state, spending lots of time all across the country. This weekend, of course, we also spent time on the road with Pastor Warnock in Albany, as well as Black Voters Matter in Macon, Georgia, and Columbus, Georgia. It is all about a ground game. Some $250 million is going to be spent on this campaign with massive spending on television and radio, but it is now up to the voters. And today was the first day for folks to actually do that. We were out at the polls this morning, of course, talking to folks, where Ambassador Andrew Young was there voting with Pastor Raphael Warnock. We live streamed that particular event taking place. It really was a major deal, to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my iPad, and I'm going to play all of our conversation with Andrew Young. And the reason that's important is because here you have a lieutenant of Dr. King, and you're going to hear him talk about having tears in his eyes when he arrived at the polls and saw the massive line that was that greeted him. Folks in line. It was cold this morning, some 41 degrees, overcast, wind was blowing. It was cold all day. But the voters made it perfectly clear. Yeah, they were going to do whatever necessary to actually wait in line. And so we had a great chance to chat with Ambassador Andrew Young. The media was assembled there as we waited for Pastor Raphael Warnock to show up there for the two of them to actually vote together. And so I just wanted to share this with you and listen to the words and wisdom of the great Ambassador Andrew Young, also former mayor of Atlanta, former congressman from Georgia as well.
Mr. Young, what's going on today?
This is what we used to call a Freedom Day. That these are people who have been marching and singing and, protesting and boycotting. And today is the day they get a chance to vote for all of the things that they have been complaining about. And hopefully they're voting, well, they will. They'll vote for whoever they think is going to make things better for them. Now, that means it's going to be a divided election. But hopefully in Atlanta, after the vote is cast and counted, we live up to the will of the people, and we try to do as best we can what is best for all of the people. And I think that's what's happening.
Tell me about the candidates. What do you think about the candidates?
Well, I'm a Democrat, and I think we have two young, bright, wise young men that could give this country leadership for a long time. And they've got a diversity of background, and yet they've all come up through many dangers, toils, and snares by God's amazing grace. And I think God's amazing grace is going to lead us all.
And why is this election so important? And where do you compare it with all the elections that you've been involved in?
Well, this is the most important election I think I've ever been involved in since our first voter registration drive was down in Thomasville in 1955-56. And we got through that. And as a result of that election, in fact, that was an election when all of the black people were Republican because there was a Democratic white primary and they didn't want them whites, blacks, and that. But that was the vote where Eisenhower was elected. And the black Republicans nominated the judges. And all of the judges that decided cases for us in the 1960s and 70s were basically out of that 1956 election where Eisenhower was appointed and appointed the people that were nominated by the black and tan Republican Party.
So would you say that out of all your involvements in elections, these are the two roles that stand out in your life?
No, there's another one, and that was where they elected me. But, the first election I lost in 1970, and one of the reasons I lost it was they must have put 100,000 pamphlets out that said, if Andrew Young is elected, the Black Panthers are going to get your daughter. And they had me in a picture of from Mississippi in overalls where I hadn't shaved, and they scared a lot of people into not voting for me. 2 years later, they knew better, and I got elected, and I've been elected everything almost. Well, not everything, because I tried to run for governor, but I was running for governor and running to get the Olympics. I missed the governor, but we got the Olympics. So I got no complaints about what's going on.
Matthew, speak about that running statewide, especially having to deal with rural voters. We've already seen polling that a lot of people aren't even aware there's a runoff, and so how critical is it going to be for Ossoff and Warnock to really drive rural turnout, especially among African Americans?
Well, actually, Stacey Abrams has been working on getting out the vote and registering voters, and she has personally, she's the only person I know that's personally visited all 159 counties in Georgia, and she carried most of them, but hey, how you doing? But it's, I forgot which lady came.
Yeah, she was.
I'm an old man, pretty ladies do that.
The importance of targeting those rural voters and getting them to turn out.
Well, yeah, I think we do a good job with that. And see, there's no place more than 2 hours from Atlanta almost, 2 or 3 hours. We got good expressways. We have not had as much voter suppression in rural Georgia in recent years as we've had in urban and suburban Georgia. But all of that's part of change.
One of the things also points out when we talk about Republicans already tried to change the various laws that they've changed to make it easier for people to vote. Newt Gingrich was complaining that why the Secretary of State making it hard for Republicans to win. I thought the Secretary of State worked for the people, not the Republican Party.
Well, and was elected by the people, not the Republican Party. But I've even had, I remember when I was in Congress with Newt Gingrich, I remember when he was liberal enough to take the lead with Jack Kemp on boycotting South Africa. And everybody got caught under, I think they were fearful of the bully in their midst. And I'm sure they know better. And, and I think we will move on after this. And you cannot lose faith in democracy, because with all of the troubles we got, it's still the best system of government on earth. And, people are afraid of socialism, but you can't have socialism anymore. It cannot exist with cell phones.
Gotta ask you, electoral college meets today.
Yeah.
And that's, Joe Biden will be certified to win again. Just your thoughts on the constant attacks by Trump and his supporters to undermine this election?
Well, even the electoral college, this democracy was formed really very well by the founding fathers in 1776. But they knew that they were not right about women or slavery. And we have had to work with the democracy. After the Second World War, they gave white veterans more benefits than they gave black veterans. They've given white farmers more land, big white farmers more land than little black farmers or little white farmers. So, the thing about an election every 2 years is it gives you a chance to perfect the system. And that's what I think we're doing. And I think people have gotten that message thanks to the candidates who've been out here getting it, and you can't shortchange Stacey Abrams for the systematic work she's done. You know, she's one politician. When she lost, she went to work, and she hadn't stopped working yet. And I hope she won't.
I might have missed it, but just how are you feeling right now? Excited? What's going
Well,
on?
I tell you what, I was pleased when I rode up here at 8:30 this morning and saw that line. I went out to try to speak to him, and I couldn't because I tee it all up. I mean, people died for this right.
I want to pause that for a second. And so again, just to put this in perspective for the folks who are watching this, there's a reason why we were out there. This has been quite a year of loss, not only for African Americans, but especially for Atlanta. Earlier this year, we lost Congressman John Lewis, who passed away at the age of 80 after battling pancreatic cancer. We lost Reverend Joseph Lowry, one of the civil rights stalwarts. We also lost Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian. You talk about collective, folks, 270 years of life, of wisdom and experience. And so for Andrew Young, who is approaching 90, still fluid, still lucid, to be there, to greet voters. He's a beloved figure in this city. And it was really, really important, Pastor Warnock, you're going to hear this a little bit later, as he addressed the crowd there, to have Ambassador Young there with him. Now, as I said, this is someone who's a United Nations ambassador, mayor of Atlanta, former congressman as well, someone who's given so much of himself. And it was this history lesson, if you will, this history lesson that he gave us, talking about the importance of voting, talking about, again, what it was, what Dr. King would think about this, but also John Lewis. And so we're going to share more of this with you. Some of you may have missed our live stream this morning. And so we live streamed all of this, even when Pastor Warnock arriving on the scene there. And so we wanted to just, show you some of this here. And so here's more of my conversation with Ambassador Andrew.
And many of them I knew. And people got beat up. And people lost their homes, lost their jobs. And democracy doesn't come cheap. You have to give some time, and sometimes you have to risk your life that democracy might live. And John Lewis did that. Dr. King did that. Jimmy Lee Jackson in Marion, Alabama, and Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney in Mississippi. And then George Floyd is probably responsible for this boom in Minneapolis. Okay, thank you. Good.
Alpha, sir, Alpha.
Thank you.
If Congressman Lewis was here right now, just how do you think he'd be feeling?
Who's that?
If Congressman Lewis was here.
Oh. He they'd be tearing up like me. But it would be tears of joy.
Tell me that again, I'm sorry.
I said he'd be tearing up like me, but they'd be tears of joy.
Ambassador, I'll ask you this question here.
Okay.
There are some folks who say this doesn't matter. Electing Ossoff, Warnock. There are young folks, there are older folks who say...
No. Nobody I don't believe there's anybody left that doesn't understand the power of the vote. I mean, there used to be some dumb people, and there used to be some folk that just didn't give a damn about anything, including themselves. But I think we've been through too much, and I think Stacey Abrams said the other night that the biggest increase in voter registration since the last election, that's just a few months ago, a month ago, but the largest increase in voter registration was between 18 and 29-year-olds. And young folk just get so busy. They're so busy growing up, they don't realize that this is a part of growing up.
Well, what do you say to that person who says, I haven't seen change, I don't think there's... What do you say to that person who is frustrated?
Well, I say that what my daddy told me, don't get mad, get smart. When you get mad and get emotional, you do stupid things. And if you stop and think about why things have not gotten better, a good reason why they have not gotten better is we've not voted enough. And we've not voted intelligently. And we haven't, I don't know whether you realize that when I was elected mayor, I was sworn in at 10 o'clock in the morning, got to City Hall about 12. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, all of my boys from SCLC were out there picketing me. I said, what is the matter with you? They said, no, you're the man now. And I realized, which one? How does she know? Tell her I have my mask, and there's nobody. Hi. How you doing? Fine. Okay.
You saying your SCLC guys were picketing you.
They were picketing me, and then I realized that this was good because it gave me a constant reminder that I wasn't there for myself. I was there representing them. And I taught them that what you're voting for somebody to be at the table when the money's divided up. And it's all about dividing up the money. And you invest in what you believe in. And if you don't believe in yourself, we had a little fella who started working with me at 14. And he was too young to vote, but he put bumper stickers on cars and got all his gang organized. And then when I got elected, I was in Washington. I got a call one day, and he said, hey, Andy. He didn't say congressman. He'd known me since he was a kid. He said, I need your help. I said, what do you need? He said, I need to get into Morehouse. I said, well, you should have good grades. You're smart enough. He said, well, I'm smart enough, but I don't know about my grades. I said, well, you help me get into Congress, I guess I have to try to at least recommend you to Morehouse. Then I go to the UN, and he finishes Morehouse, and then he calls me up at the UN and says, look, didn't you go to Howard? I said, yeah. He said, I want to get into Howard's law school. Can you give me a recommendation? So I got him a recommendation for Howard's law school, and he got in, and by the time I left the UN and came back to be mayor, I was, we were finishing the international terminal in the 3rd and 4th runway. And we'd have $300 million deal that we put together to take to Wall Street. It's the first time I'd ever been in a Wall Street boardroom. And I go in there, and there are all of these books for me to sign. And I said, what is this about? He said, if you want your $300 million, you have to sign all these books. And I said, well, what are you doing back there? He said, remember, you sent me to law school. He said, my law firm is doing the legal work on this. I said, how much are they paying you? He said, well, they're not paying me, but the legal fees on this are about $600,000. I said, you getting $600,000? That's more than I'll make it there in 8 years. And he said, you should have gone to law school.
Well, he owed you a check.
No, he didn't.
Right.
But he went from being on the street, putting on bumper stickers, to being in the boardroom, telling me how to get $300 million, and his law firm got $600,000. Now, he went from being a street brother to collecting a check in the boardroom. And
but had he not worked for your campaign,
and
had he not volunteered, and not shown his initiative, then he would not have been able to call from you.
Yeah, that's right.
So he put in the work and you put in the work.
But in Atlanta, they never let me forget that I work for them. They don't work for me.
There you go.
And I think all of our mayors have done that.
All right, sir.
God bless you.
No, I had to work that alpha ring there.
You know, I never got one of them.
I got it for myself, my 30th anniversary.
But let me tell you something. I don't even have my fraternity pin. Because...
that was, again, Ambassador Andrew Young, my alpha brother. We certainly had some good time there talking to him. This was, of course, him outside of the polls this morning. He was waiting on Pastor Raphael Warnock to arrive at the location for them to actually vote together. And this is the video here. This is the video of Warnock arriving on the scene, arriving there to greet Ambassador Andrew Young as they were talking with others, again, voting today. Today was the first day of early voting in Georgia. They wanted to really encourage folks to come out and vote. There have been long lines all across across the city, across the county, 159 counties here in Georgia, and so it was really an amazing thing. Here you have, as Pastor Raphael Warnock has often said on the campaign trail, here you have a young man who grew up in public housing. You see the two of them greeting each other. Both of them, my fraternity brother, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, same frat as Dr. King. And it was an amazing thing. After Pastor Warnock and Ambassador Andrew Young voted, then Warnock held a news conference where he talked with the media and addressed us. Did not take any questions, but he certainly wanted to speak on what it felt like on this day to vote for himself in this runoff and then do so next to one of his heroes. Here's what Warnock had to say.
Morning, the line was all the way back at the end. And as I went right down the line, and most of the people were senior citizens like me, and I realized how long we've been on this march. And
First of all, let me say that it is a very humbling thing for a kid who grew up in public housing to be able to cast a vote for himself to serve in the United States Senate. Only in America is my story even possible. And so I'm grateful for this moment, grateful for my father of blessed memory, and I'm grateful for my mother who grew up in Waycross, Georgia, picking tobacco and cotton during the summers. And today she gets to help pick her son to be one of the next 2 United States senators from the great state of Georgia. So I just want to encourage everyone to exercise your constitutional right to vote. And as I've been saying all across this state, we should no longer be talking about election day. The stakes are too high. This is election season. And so early voting begins today. People should make their way to the polls. It's a beautiful day to vote. So make your way to the polls. Early voting today, December 14th through December 31st. We also remind people that they can vote by mail. It was a humbling thing to vote for myself today, but let me tell you, more than a name, what's really on the ballot. Healthcare is on the ballot. A livable wage is on the ballot. Criminal justice reform is on the ballot. Voting rights. All of these issues are on the ballot. And so thank you so much. Make a plan to vote. Gather everybody in your circle. This is a defining moment in American history. Georgia's at the center of it. Let's show up the way Georgia does. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Feel with him,
Thank you.
Ambassador Young voting with?
Yeah, let me just say I'm deeply honored to have Ambassador Young here. He's the reason I'm able to stand here.
Amen.
He and those who fought alongside him. Our ballot is a bloodstained ballot. And so I want to thank him and all the others who fought alongside him, and I'm grateful and deeply humbled.
Ambassador Young, do you
A little bit later in the show, we're going to show you John Ossoff, of course, hitting the campaign trail as well. Folks, this weekend in D.C., the Trump people, as I've said, they have not been able to handle losing. And so they gathered in Washington, D.C., and the racist domestic terrorists, the Proud Boys, came and acted like the thugs that they are, beating folks, terrorizing folks. But what really has angered people is the tearing down of Black Lives Matter signs from 2 black churches, Asbury Methodist Church and Metropolitan AME Church as well. Many people are asking, where were the cops? What was going on? Where were the federal authorities? We saw all this huge show of force, and Black Lives Matter was out there protesting, but what about this? Well, Carl Racine is the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, and he joins us right now. Carl, glad to have you in Roland Martin Unfiltered.
How you doing there, Roland? Very proud of your success in killing this platform.
Well, sir, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. What happened this weekend? It was shocking to see these thugs just rampaging through the streets as if there were no cops around to stop what they were doing. The D.C. police or the federal authorities explain what in the world happened this weekend?
Well, a lot happened this weekend. I think, first of all, the President of the United States executed on his plan as he indicated during the debate with President-elect Joe Biden. You remember the line, stand back, but stand by. He is now implementing that plan where he's asking the Proud Boys to no longer stand by. And as you correctly noted, they are a hate group, a white supremacist extremist group, who are obviously trying to destabilize the core principles of equality of our country. With regard to what occurred in the District of Columbia, you had a group of honestly hate mongers out to create havoc and distraction. And once they distracted the Metropolitan Police Department enough, they went ahead, as I'm sure they planned, and sought to desecrate African American churches. There is no coincidence that the AME Church over right by 17th and Rhode Island was targeted. That church, of course, is the sister church to Mother Emanuel in Charleston, where just a few years ago, Dylan Roof executed a number of peaceful and loving parishioners. I'm happy to talk about the Metropolitan Police Department if you would allow me to take another minute. Is that okay?
Sure. Go ahead.
Let me just tell you what I know. And I know this because our lawyers at the Office of Attorney General were following literally radio feeds going in and out from the police department to certain law enforcement officials, including our own. The Metropolitan Police Department were literally deluged minute by minute with all manner of events. And overwhelmingly, and I'm going to speak very honestly because I don't mind being critical of the police when it is appropriate. Overwhelmingly, the Metropolitan Police Department successfully separated folks who were going to literally go after each other. And we saw stabbings and assaults, and the police were tending to those. They were not in position to protect the entirety of the city, and I'm not being defensive here. I know that if the Metropolitan Police Department could have known that those two churches were going to be targeted, I firmly believe they would have had the appropriate level of security there. I don't think there was any intention nor carelessness, recklessness, or grave neglect on the part of the police department. I think they were trying to do, honestly, the best job they could. And the hate mongers should be the story, not the Metropolitan Police Department, who tried the best they could.
Are you and others analyzing the video? Are there any plans to charge these Proud Boys, these white domestic terrorists, with any crimes?
It's a fair and great question. Let me just say a couple of things about the Office of Attorney General of the District of Columbia. As you know, the District of Columbia is an unusual jurisdiction. We don't have the ability as DC local prosecutor to actually charge the kind of adult offenses that would be pursued against individuals and indeed the institution that is the Proud Boys. The prosecutor for those events are instead the federal prosecutor. And the federal prosecutor is appointed by the President of the United States. I know that the Metropolitan Police Department is investigating this matter. I wish I could be the prosecutor in my office who could bring these cases. Now's the time to put the pressure on the federal prosecutor to do its job, to bring the hate crime cases against those people who violated the rights of the church and otherwise caused havoc in our streets.
Well, it certainly was shocking and stunning for a lot of people to see what happened, to see what they did, desecrating those two black churches. Clearly, they were targeted as well, and so we certainly hope that the federal government would do what they're supposed to do. Well, again, what we're dealing with is, of course, Donald Trump and his minions as well. But It was pathetic to see again those individuals, bringing their hate down the street, and what really just bugs me to death. White conservative evangelicals have been real quiet. They've said nothing about the attacks on these
They
black
said
churches.
zero,
That to
Roland.
me is
You're
a shame.
exactly right. The leader of the Proud Boys visited the White House. Get this right. A hate group leader visited the White House. And then, hours later, went about desecrating black churches. Roland, may I raise an issue with you tonight?
Yeah, go ahead.
There are reports that Attorney General Bill Barr just resigned. I think it's effective in some days or shortly before Christmas.
Yeah,
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, December 23rd. He has resigned effective December 23rd.
I am deeply concerned, Roland, as I sit here tonight, about Bill Barr's resignation. Bill Barr has done Donald Trump's bidding since he came into office as Attorney General. In a way, Bill Barr was like an accomplice, maybe a driver who's involved in wrongdoing. The fact that he is leaving the car right now tells me that maybe Mr. Barr, who's done the bidding of Donald Trump, doesn't want to do the bidding of what is planned next. I believe that this is a 5-alarm fire for all of us to listen to, and that we need every respected leader, spiritual, religious, political, business, and military, to tell Donald Trump to cease and desist his undemocratic and dangerous actions. We need General Mattis, perhaps one of the most respected individuals in our country, to come out now and urge the military to not participate in any way in whatever Donald Trump has planned. Thank you, Roland.
Carl Racine, Attorney General for the District of Columbia. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Now I want to go to our panel here. Joining us on today's panel is Julianne Malveaux, economist, president emerita, Bennett College, Teresa Lundy, principal founder, TML Communications, Joseph Williams, senior editor at U.S. News and World Report. It was certainly something to behold, Julianne, to see those white domestic terrorists rampaging down the street, beating people, harassing people. And to see what they did to the Black Lives Matter signs at Asbury Methodist as well as Metropolitan AME.
You know, Metropolitan AME Church is my church. It's where I worship. Unfortunately, now online, but I joined about 4 years ago. I adore my pastor, who has much more equanimity than I do about this. This nonsense, Roland, is ridiculous. How do you put yourself onto church property, trespassing, tear signs down, burn them? This does remind us, as the pastor at Ashburn said, it reminds us of Frostburn. It was just so totally ridiculous. White trash, white trash came looking for a fight. Because everybody would find that would get all kinds of had fun. Is that hate had been there all along? Hate can go back to enslavement. This hate that he unleashed. And I must tell you, Roland, that I am sickened by what had happened on Saturday evening and over the weekend.
I want to go to Joseph Williams. Joseph, again, to see what happened, I would think that federal authorities should be examining those videos and again, using artificial intelligence to find out who those folks were and to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law.
Well, and the local news has said that they're doing just that they're examining a lot of the videos that were taken and a lot of videos that have shown up on news networks of exactly what was happening. I mean, the cross-burning analogy is spot on, but even that seems too mild because they went after a church, which is sacred ground, which is trespassing to the nth degree. But there are two things that really concern me about what I just heard with your interview with Carl Racine. The first is he mentioned that the Metropolitan Police Department didn't necessarily have the manpower to track these groups or didn't have the ability to track all the scattershot violence that was going on. That concerns me a little bit. Number one, because back when the George Floyd protests were happening, they had choppers in the air. They had extra manpower on the ground. They had all kinds of things going on to make sure that they surveilled these people and that they knew where they were going ahead of time. That's concern number one. Concern number two is his comment about Bill Barr is just resonating in my head, and I'm like, holy mackerel. If this guy is saying that he's ringing the alarm bell about the departure of Trump's number one ally, there must be something incredibly mind-blowing about the fact that this man, presumably who has at least a little bit more information and more context than we do, that there's something afoot, and that is not good.
Roland, I know I'm speaking out of turn, but let me just say one more thing. Mayor Bowser, like I said, I know I'm speaking out of turn, but let me just say this. Mayor Bowser has been ahead of the game up until now. Now she's behind the game. She could have put troops out there, police out there. Peter Newsom has resigned his position. He's going to some smaller district with a $40,000 pay cut so he could get away from all of us, quite frankly. But the mayor should have, she's been doing a good job with COVID, but this is where she has dropped the ball, and we just need to make it clear. She's a sister, she all that, but this is on her watch.
Teresa, this is not going to be the last time we see this. I mean, folks had better be prepared because Trump and his minions, especially these Proud Boys, these thugs are so angry that he lost, and Trump is stoking them, and not even in a light way. They cannot, and we better be real careful between now and inauguration. They simply cannot accept the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris beat Donald Trump.
And groups like this, these radical, right wing, almost conservatives, almost, just those groups that just choose not to believe in democracy and the way things work. So these are the people who I like to call the forgotten ones. Those who, feel like they've been empowered by, a leader that, maybe strokes their ego or strokes some sort of, some radical play that allows them to feel good about themselves, which is so interesting because some of these people are working directly in the institutions that we seek to change. So no, they're not going to be happy with what's going to happen when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden gets in. I think it is very interesting. Dr. Julianne brings up a great point that the mayor of D.C., phenomenal woman, but she did drop the ball. There were things that she could have done, but you know what? We're not in that administration, so we do not know if she did try and, something else happened. But I do believe if we're going to spread Black Lives Matter in yellow across the streets of Washington, D.C., we should have a better understanding of the ones who are taking part in this rally, but also some pro defense mechanisms that could have happened in order for some of those issues not to take place.
Well, we're certainly going to be monitoring this, and we hope to see. We certainly hope to see charges leveled against these individuals for their actions. I did reach out to the pastor of Metropolitan AME to see if he can join us. He was unable to do so tonight, but we certainly they have a standing invitation. The pastor Lamar does to come on here at any time. Folks, I told you we were out early today, really all over Georgia the last several days. Focusing on the runoff here, and then we're going to show a little video from my iPad. This is some drone footage of John Ossoff. He had a march of the polls in Gwinnett County, meeting with some of the people, of course, who are supporting him, and Again, he is running against Senator David Perdue, running in tandem with Pastor Raphael Warnock. And so after of course, of course, he spoke to the supporters there, and then after they actually did this particular march, he took some questions for some of us, and here is John Ossoff. John, you've been traveling the state bus tour. Give us a sense of rural Georgia, how they've been responding, and your thoughts about how critical that turnout is going to be.
We've been focused on having a presence and being visible and being accessible and holding events in rural Georgia. And look, the needs of people across the state are the same: health, jobs, and justice. People, 2 million Georgians don't have health insurance. 2 million Georgians. And many of those who are insured are underinsured. And many of those who are insured live hours from a clinic or a hospital. We've lost 9 rural hospitals in 10 years in Georgia. It doesn't have to be that way. Where's our senator been while these hospitals have closed? We need to rush resources to build clinics and hospitals across our state to make sure that every family in Georgia can access the health care they need. We need to invest in rural infrastructure, rural broadband, upgrading public school facilities, transit and transportation links to connect our farming communities with world markets and create jobs and economic revitalization in rural Georgia. And we need to pass a new Civil Rights Act to secure equal justice for all, regardless of race and regardless of class. And that's why it's so important to vote this week.
How do you respond to Newt Gingrich saying that the Republican Secretary of State is making it harder for Republicans to win? I thought the Secretary of State works for all citizens in Georgia, whether they're Democrat or Republican.
Newt Gingrich is upset that Secretary Raffensperger is not abusing his authority to disenfranchise people. Newt Gingrich wants the apparatus of voter suppression that's been built in Georgia since the Shelby County v. Holder decision in 2013 to suppress black voters in this state and win elections through voter suppression. They thought that the apparatus of voter suppression would keep the lid on the pot, but the will of the people is boiling over. People want health, jobs, and justice.
Okay.
Again, folks, runoff, of course, voting began today. A little bit later in the show, we'll show you just a little bit of the video we shot at the rally that took place, the drive-in rally, social distance rally, with John Ossoff and Pastor Raphael Warnock in the parking lot of Turner Field. Tomorrow, President Joe Biden will be here, and will be, of course, he'll be here for a rally with Ossoff and Warnock, and we will be live streaming that rally right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Folks, let's go to Texas, where there's a shocking story of a young man, Joshua Feast. Shooting took place in Lamarck, Texas. He was shot by law enforcement on December 9th. Now, protesters have taken to the streets to demand the firing of Lamarck police chief Kirk Jackson and officer Jose Santos. According to investigators, Feast was a person of interest in an ongoing investigation of recent shootings in Lamarck. On December 9th, officers say they saw Feast sitting in his car. He then exited his vehicle and started running across the street. That's when officers opened fire on the 22-year-old. He was taken to a local hospital and died. Joining me right now is Attorney Ben Crump, who's attorney for the Feast family. Attorney Crump, have they released any of the body cam footage? Have they released anything for the public to see exactly what took place? We know, based upon existing reports, that Feast was running away from officers. So why did they fire?
First.
One second, Ben Crump. So your audio is breaking up. We can't hear you at all. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to call you on audio, either FaceTime audio or Skype audio. And so we'll forego the video, but we want to be able to hear exactly what you have to say. So folks, if y'all can go ahead and do that, but it's breaking up badly. We can't understand what Ben is saying. So y'all let me know when we have just Ben's audio. Just Ben's audio. As I said, folks, this case has stirred up a hornet's nest there in Lamarck, Texas. Lamarck sits between Houston and Galveston. And it is a shocking story, but it's a common story. Again, where police shoot an African American running away. Now, officers always talk about firing. The law says if their lives are in danger, but someone running away, your life is not in danger if they're running away. Feast is dead. Feast is dead, and his family, they are demanding answers. They are grieving his particular loss as well, and so they want the city of La Marque to provide some answers, and even asking, why is the police chief, why is this officer still on the force? Why do they still have their job? This is the kind of thing, Joseph Williams, that we continue to see across this country, and it's officers. Bottom line is, you're black, shoot first, ask questions. So we have Ben. Actually, before I go to Joseph, let me go back. So we have Ben Crump. Ben, go ahead with your comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, Roland, it's shocking why this young black man who was running away from the police, who several witnesses saw was running away, was shot in his back and killed by Officer Jose Santos. And what's equally shocking, Roland, is in 2013 in Galveston, Texas, there is a video of Officer Santos and his co-workers, his colleagues, 3 of them, beating this black man unmercifully while he's putting his head underwater, kicking him, stomping him, punching him. And from 2013, he resigned, was not terminated, was not stripped of his badge and gun of ever being an officer again. And so when they condoned this, Roland, it was foreseeable that this guy was going to continue to engage in brutality against black people. And that's exactly why Joshua Feast is dead today.
And in fact, you are the video that you are talking about. I'm actually playing that video right now from my iPad. Folks, this is the video, exactly what you're talking about, when the officers beat him. What has the city of La Marque said? Have city officials said anything? Have they seen the body cam footage? Was there body cam footage? Was there dash cam footage of the shooting of Joshua Feast?
There is apparently body cam footage. The city has seen it. Attorney Monique Presley and I are demanding that they release that body cam footage. But Roland, there were eyewitnesses, and apparently after he shot Joshua, while Joshua was on the ground, he walked over to him and kicked him and told him to get up. And so it's just further evidence that this guy is not fit, does not have the temperament, does not have the professionalism to be a police officer. So we're demanding he be terminated immediately and that these body cam videos be shown to make sure that he is arrested for cold-blooded murder. Yet again, another black man. Roland, it's 94 black people that have been killed by police in America since George Floyd died on May 25th, 2020.
That is indeed sad. Ben Crump, certainly keep us up to date on this case in my native Texas, and we certainly look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much, Roland.
All right, folks. Got to go to commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk more with our panel about the runoffs in Georgia. Also, Joe Biden, Electoral College, it's official. President-elect of the United States, MAGA, I call them maggots, the Trump MAGAites, they are still not happy. Y'all, your boy lost. Suck it up. We'll talk about that with our panel as well. And the bottom of the hour, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the president-elect and the vice president-elect, will speak to the nation, and we'll carry it live right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. I think what still impacts and what creates change is when we mobilize. When we say we're not powerless, and if I get with you and you and you, and all of a sudden it's 10 to 20 to 100 and 500 and 2,000 and 5,000, all of a sudden you have mobilized people, that creates that voting power. And then when you throw somebody out, it catches their attention real quick.
But not only just that, they have to know what it is that they're standing for. Because if you have friends that talks politics, then of course we're having a decent conversation and I'm being educated at the same time. But if my group of people are not talking about that, then I still don't know. So I can unite with you, and then I'm making sure that you have the voice, but what if you don't have the courage to speak? So you're still getting a group of people together that don't know how to do nothing.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising. Before we knew about COVID-19, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue received classified briefings about the virus. And what did they do next? They downplayed the risks, then invested in body bags. 10 months later, over 10,000 Georgians dead. Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, dead wrong.
There's an easy way to save lives and keep Americans safe.
It's not politics, it's science.
So do your part to protect your fellow citizens and help slow the spread.
For your family,
For your neighbors,
for your country.
wear a mask.
Well, y'all, Donald Trump has lost again. Today, the Electoral College met in state capitals all across the country, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have received the 306 Electoral College votes that they won by winning a variety of states across the country. It is one of the biggest margins of someone defeating an incumbent president. Trump world is not happy. They still are contesting the election. It does not matter. Now they have this last-ditch effort trying to ask the House of Representatives to cast aside the votes of millions of people. This is pretty much of a joke, Joseph. It really is. But also, it is a grave threat to democracy when you see what Republicans are doing, not just 126 House members, not just these 18 Republican attorney generals, but also these Republicans in the Senate, people who've known Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for a very long time, who are so afraid of Donald Trump, they won't even own up to Biden and Harris winning.
Well, this is the kind of dysfunction that happens in third world countries, people that don't have an established system of democracy. The problem here, however, is the fact that Republicans love power and they're craving it, and the only person who they think has it or has access to it is Donald Trump. Now, I wonder what's going to happen when he finally leaves office and whether or not this kind of thing goes away. I kind of tend to think it's not going to go away. And where does that leave us? It leaves us in basically a party, or rather a country, with one functional party and another party that's looking to undermine democracy. So it's clear, it's been clear since 3 weeks after the election that Joe Biden was the winner and that Donald Trump had no clear path to declaring victory, but he figured that he was going to try to make mischief anyway, and it's going to pay off. And to me, there's kind of a through line here between what we saw in D.C. this weekend with the Proud Boys, what we see in Texas, and the fact that the Republican Party has remained silent on all of it. So I don't think that it's any mystery why these people showed up in Washington, why more people may show up at Washington to contest an election that's been over for almost a month and a half now.
Teresa, you even have these idiots like Alan West, who now is chair of the Texas Republican Party, saying that people like Texas should secede from the United States. First of all, the red states, y'all, you can't succeed because you're broke. Most of the red states gets more money from the federal government than they actually generate themselves. So y'all can't afford it. So shut up.
At all. I mean, it's a disgrace on so many levels. I mean, democracy is hanging in the balance here because we are seeing, Republicans really try to find themselves in a president that literally has only himself in mind, right? And so it's literally like they're like placing all their bets onto Donald Trump. And when he leaves, they know for sure that their seats are going to be at the balance of the people. And that means all of their, back and forth, all of their non-agreeing, all their, denying a presidency and defying the Constitution of which they say they live by is all going to go by the wayside. And so it's a very important time. Right now is a very important time in history. Another reason why I'm wearing this American flag, because history is taking place with these runoff races, but it's also showing us where our country needs to go and the type of leadership that needs to be put in to place so we stop electing these traditional politicians that do not have the people in mind, but they have self that is at the forefront of this discussion.
But the thing here, Julian, that this is not a laughing matter. The Wisconsin Supreme Court today ruled against the Trump lawsuit regarding the election. It was a 4-3 vote. It wasn't 7-0. 3 Republicans, Wisconsin State Supreme Court justices, agreed with the Trump people. I think that's something that we cannot overlook, that these folks are such partisan hacks, they will ignore the law to advance their interest.
How do you get more than 100 Republican members of Congress, sign on to the Texas lawsuit? That's how you get a 4-3 vote in Wisconsin. The fact that Joseph said earlier, these people love power more than they love democracy. The blessing at the moment is that the Supreme Court, even with its 3 Trump appointees, has not yet been swayed by this nonsense. But the fact is that these folks will do anything to say
Julian, your video is breaking up real bad. We're gonna try to get that fixed. The thing here, and again in a moment, President-elect Joe Biden, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, they're going to address the nation at the bottom of the hour. We'll carry it live. But what these people, Joseph, want to do, what they're trying to do, is very dangerous. Because the reality is they hold power. They are in control of state legislatures. These attorneys generals, what they did, flout the law. And in fact, the Trump folks, they have been able to go to court numerous times, have not been able to present any credible evidence of voter fraud. It's what they assert outside of the courtroom. But they know you go in that courtroom and you lie, you can lose your law license, and none of Trump's lawyers will do that.
Well, and that's the problem, I think. Somebody needs to pay a penalty for this, for bringing a frivolous lawsuit that could threaten and undermine democracy. But there's also another important point here. I mean, you talked about the Wisconsin judiciary saying that they were not going to accept Trump's lawsuit, that they turned it down. It was not unanimous, right? And that, to me, reminds me of the fact that they've been salting these judges in the federal bench all 4 years of Donald Trump's term. Now, it didn't necessarily pay off in the Supreme Court this time around, but certainly the feeder courts that lead judges to get to the Supreme Court are all filled with Trump appointees, and some of them are not qualified to hold the office. It's not just me saying it, it's the American Bar Association, and it's repeated that they have had people who have ascended to the federal bench who are not qualified to do so. They do that for a reason. They're looking for hacks, and those hacks are established. And not only are they established, but they will have some influence for some time to come. Now, that's what worries me about the whole Wisconsin thing, is that, yeah, we had, there were 4, it was a 4-3 vote. 3 people got defeated by 4, but what happens when it comes the other way around? And what happens when some of those people who aren't qualified to hold a judicial office, what happens when they do get some of these courts? And also further to that, what happens with the Republican leadership that just says nothing about all of this, that is willing to say, okay, let's let him have his temper tantrum, even though that temper tantrum gradually chips away again and again at the foundation of democracy. And the last thing I'll say about that is that you have these people who are threatening to succeed, fine. The South did it 150, 160 years ago, Didn't work out so well in the long run.
These people, they have no principles. They have no courage. They have no integrity. I don't want to hear that law and order crap, Teresa. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear all the founding fathers and we're here to uphold it. No. What they have tried to do is to subvert the U.S. Constitution. They have committed treasonous acts, and we have to call it what it is.
And that's why I believe the only power that Trump really has is the power of the pardon. And so I think everybody right now, those who are actively willing his bidding, is ensuring that they are on that forever pardon list, because they're not sure what that outcome is going to look like. So protecting themselves and their assets is pretty much the only agenda and the only card that Trump seemingly has to play in this lost election. So it looks like they're really taking it down to the last end. But it's really unfortunate because the characters of each of these justices, of whom those they've been appointed and elected, when we say, the elections of judicials matter, they absolutely matter. And it's coming, to the front end of the stage early. So when those appointments were happening and when people were bidding for certain positions, and yes, we were talking about other issues that were happening at the Supreme Court, but we really needed to pay attention to those appointments, because these are the type of people that we're getting, and the results are going to be treacherous in the long run.
But see, I also wonder, I mean, if I can
Hey,
interject,
Juliana,
I also wonder how are you going to get the genie back into the bottle, right? I mean, we already have a lot of this stuff that's playing out in public. We got these unqualified judges that are going to be there for a lifetime. We have a Republican Party that has all but pledged fealty to Donald Trump. And we have a QAnon member, like somebody who actually believes that there's this vast global conspiracy out there and that Donald Trump is the only one that's keeping the world from chaos, right? She is now going to Congress. She is going to be a confirmed congresswoman. How do you get the genie back in the bottle? How do you get sanity back in the Republican Party when they're so willing to do insane things just to maintain power? And what is that going to do to the fabric of the country, that we've got one party that just has no grounding in reality, and the people who may have some tenuous grounding in reality still don't want to say anything because they're afraid of pissing off their voters and losing their safe seat? What happens now? Where do we go from here, I wonder?
I would probably
I think where we go is let's just be real clear. There is no such thing as Trump's base in the Republican Party and the Republican Party. Those two things are one. There are no distinctions. The Republican Party as a party has embraced the crazy. They have embraced it. For 126 House members to do what they did, to side with that ridiculous lawsuit out of Texas from Attorney General Ken Paxton, it's enough said. It's enough said. This is the Republican Party. They are who we thought they were.
Well, and I remember the day after Trump got elected. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Teresa.
One second. Teresa, then Joseph.
Yeah, so I mean, part of it is, yes, when Trump was elected, it was so cavalier. It was, very nonchalant. He was surprised when he won. But again, harnessing on the emotions of those of the forgotten, right? And I think we bring it back to the Democratic Party and the DNC more than often, and in so many ways and so many times, where we're telling them that these voices need to be at the table as well, because you wonder why you're missing votes, you're missing support, and then wonder why you have to spend more money to galvanize support of what you should have had in the beginning, because that education of the process needed to be instituted early on and year round with candidates that, are like Warnock or John Ossoff or a Stacey Abrams. Not later in the game when there's an issue and there's a crisis that needs to be handled, but somewhere in the middle of that rebuilding structure where leadership is actually taking place. So, Joseph asks where we go from here. And I think as we go back at the top, when it comes to restructuring what those measures of applicants and the constant communication, not just election season, but But what does that look like across every front?
Well, and that's
Julian,
the thing. I mean,
these folks are not going anywhere. I'm sorry, Joseph, go ahead. Joseph, go ahead, then go Julian. Joseph, go ahead.
Well, you're absolutely right. They're not going anywhere, and that is the concern. What happens now? What does the Democratic Party do now? It's clearly not an argument about economic anxiety. That's out the window. We have hundreds of people in downtown Washington beating people up, tearing down Black Lives Matter posters. We've got them marching to the beat of the president. What happens? How can you controvert that? How does that remain in a viable democracy?
Julian, they're not going anywhere, and I have been telling people since 2009. I said I've signed a book deal with Ben Bella, an independent company out of Dallas, to publish this book. It will publish in first quarter 2022. It's called White Fear. I said we're living in the age of white minority resistance. That was 11 years ago, and all we've seen in the last 11 years are these white folks losing their mind. And I'm telling you, they cannot handle losing. They cannot handle not being in the majority. They cannot handle having to share power. And so those of us who believe in freedom and equality had better gird ourselves for a battle, not over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. No. We're about to see the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Yes. It's a multi-decade struggle, Roland, just as the post-Reconstruction era was a multi-decade struggle, just like the Civil Rights era is a multi-decade struggle. These white folks are angry. They're seeing their power shift beneath their feet every minute. You've seen white people write about it, white rage. We've seen, black people write about it. But the reality is that the numbers, you can't lie with numbers. By 2050, our nation will be majority minority. Period. Get over it, y'all. That's what's going to be. You have people who say they have diversity fatigue. Well, you know what? You could have diversity fatigue just like you have sunrise fatigue. You see sun go up, sun come down, sun go up, sun come down. You tired of it? Oh, well, take a rest because it's going to keep happening. And that's what's happening now. We're seeing it in any number of ways, and we see it with the resistance. Just last week, there was a motion on the Senate floor to create a national museum on the history of the Latino. Mike Lee, senator from Utah, scratched it. He said it was divisive to talk about the history of Latino. Hell, excuse my language, but hell, we took Mexico and turned it into California, Mexico and turned it into Texas. And then this dude does not want to talk about the history of Latino. So no, these people are hot monkey mad, but they've been mad, quite frankly, Roland, since the end of enslavement. And they put every block that they could out there. And just all of a sudden now we're getting the numbers to say, oh no, y'all, this ain't happening. You had the Obama presidency, and you were absolutely right when you called that in 9. The Obama presidency ticked them off badly enough that they bit back against Hillary and went for the Orange Boy. And now you have mild-mannered Biden, who is a transitional figure, who many people voted for because he is a transitional figure, but he has at least, I'm not thrilled with his cabinet picks, but he has at least talked the diversity walk. And that is making a whole lot of white people a whole lot of mad.
Yep, absolutely. Gotta go to a break. We come back. President-elect Joe Biden will speak to the nation after today's Electoral College vote. That is next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Trump can show up and say anything, and they can just go, oh, yeah.
And the African-American community was great to us. They didn't vote.
You know, he just called you stupid. Did you hear that? But he's for us. Really? And they were just regurgitating the things that they had heard on a radio or in the barbershop or something somebody had told them. They hadn't thought about it. Democracy is in danger because people don't know how to think. I'm done with trying to convince people to try to vote for their, for their life. You have to run for your life. I'm gonna go try to get people who are open to it and lead them. I'm done with hope. Fuck hope. Bye.
There's a lot of stuff to do this time of year. Get the tree. Done. Hang the lights. Not yet. Wrap presents. Check. But this year, there's one extra thing to do. Vote. That's right. Early voting starts December 14th, so make voting part of your holiday plans. It'll probably take you less time than it'll take me to do this. I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message.
My opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
I memorized everything they told me to say.
Radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
I just married a really rich guy.
Radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
My husband bought my Senate seat.
Radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
No one actually voted for me.
Gangster. Radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
I am consumed with self-hate.
Radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
I don't belong here. I'm not a senator.
Nancy. Radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
Where's my husband? I need help.
The radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
All the players on the WNBA team I own hate me. I'm not a real person. I'm a robot. I am a robot. I am a robot.
Sure do need to vote now. Touch your neighbor and say, neighbor, your vote is your voice. And I want you to remember this. Our parents did more with less than we do today. With less, they beat slavery. With less, they beat Jim Crow. With less, they beat lynching. With less, they beat the KKK. With less, they won women's suffrage. With less, Harriet Tubman got 500 slaves out of slavery. She didn't have email. She didn't have text. She didn't have Facebook. She didn't have Instagram. She didn't have Twitter. She didn't have a car. All she had was faith in God and a .38 pistol on her side and moss on the north side of the tree and a North Star in the middle of the night. She did more with less, and we must do more.
iPad.
If your vote didn't matter, you wouldn't have so many people trying so hard to stop you from voting. There is some value there. But even when you talk about that people are not paying attention to your issues, I can't pay attention to your issues if I don't even know you there. And the only reason people are going to know you there is when you show up to the polls and vote. That's when that power manifests itself. But as long as you stay at home, as long as you're making excuses, then guess what? You will always experience these issues that we're experiencing today. And another thing, don't get caught up in the candidates. Right? There's no such thing as a perfect candidate, but you should be going to vote for the most important person, and that is you and the one you love. You talk about you'll fight for the one you love. You're willing to die for the one you love. You need to ask yourself, are you willing to vote for the one you love? Because if you don't, there's going to be somebody's neck on yours pretty soon.
Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Vice President Joe Biden. He, of course, is about to address the nation, and so we're going to actually go in a second live to that. So let me just go ahead and get that set up. Of course, the Electoral College made their decision today, and again, he is indeed the president. All right, so let's go ahead and go to Joe Biden's speech. Go ahead.
College tally a landslide. By his own standards, these numbers represented a clear victory then, and I respectfully suggest they do so now. If anyone didn't know before, they know now. What beats deep in the hearts of the American people is this: democracy. The right to be heard, to have your vote counted, to choose leaders of this nation, to govern ourselves. In America, politicians don't take power. People grant power to them. The flame of democracy was lit in this nation a long time ago. And we now know nothing, not even a pandemic or an abuse of power, can extinguish that flame. And as the people kept it aflame, so too did courageous state and local officials and election workers. American democracy works because America makes it work at a local level. One of the extraordinary things we saw this year was that everyday Americans, our friends and our neighbors, independence, demonstrating outrage, they showed a deep and unwavering faith in and a commitment to the law. They did their duty in the face of a pandemic. And then they could not and would not give credence to what they knew was not true. They knew this election was overseen by them, it was honest, it was free, and it was fair. They saw it with their own eyes, and they wouldn't be bullied into saying anything different. It was truly remarkable, because so many of these patriotic Americans are subject to so much enormous political pressure, verbal abuse, and even threats of physical violence. While we all wish that our fellow Americans in these positions will always show such courage and commitment to free and fair elections, it is my sincere hope we never again see anyone subjected to the kind of threats and abuse we saw in this election. It's simply unconscionable. We owe these public servants a debt of gratitude. They didn't seek the spotlight. You know, and our democracy survived because of them, which is proof, once more, that it's everyday Americans infused with honor, character, and decency that is the heart of this nation. You know, in this election, their integrity was matched by their strength, independence, and the integrity of our judicial system. In America, when questions are raised about the legitimacy of any election, those questions are resolved through the legal processes. And that's precisely what happened here. The Trump campaign brought dozens and dozens and dozens of legal challenges to test the result. They were heard again and again. And each of the time they were heard, they were found to be without merit. Time and again, President Trump's lawyers presented arguments to state officials, state legislatures, state and federal courts, and ultimately to the United States Supreme Court twice. They were heard by more than 80 judges across this country, and in every case, no cause or evidence was found to reverse or question or dispute the results. A few states went for recounts. All the counts were confirmed. The results in Georgia were counted 3 times. Didn't change the outcome. The recount conducted in Wisconsin actually saw our margin grow. The margin we had in Michigan was 14 times the margin President Trump won that state by 4 years ago. Our margin in Pennsylvania was nearly twice the size of the Trump margin 4 years ago. And yet, none of this has stopped baseless claims about the legitimacy of the results. Even more stunning, 17 Republican attorneys general and 126 Republican members of the Congress actually signed on to a lawsuit filed by the state of Texas. That lawsuit asked the United States Supreme Court to reject the certified vote counts in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This legal maneuver was an effort by elected officials and one group of states to try to get the Supreme Court to wipe out the votes of more than 20 million Americans in other states, and to hand the presidency to a candidate who lost the Electoral College, lost the popular vote, and lost each and every one of the states whose votes they were trying to reverse. It's a position so extreme, we've never seen it before. A position that refused to respect the will of the people, refused to respect the rule of law, and refused to honor our Constitution. Thankfully, a unanimous Supreme Court immediately and completely rejected this effort. The court sent a clear signal to President Trump that there would be no part of an unprecedented assault on our democracy. Every single avenue was made available to President Trump to contest the results. He took full advantage of each and every one of those avenues. President Trump was denied no course of action he wanted to take. He took his case to Republican governors and Republican Secretary of State, as he criticized many of them, to Republican state legislatures, to Republican-appointed judges at every level. And in a case decided after the Supreme Court's latest rejection, a judge appointed by President Trump wrote, quote, "This court has allowed the plaintiff the chance to make his case, and he has lost on the merits." End of quote. Lost on the merits. Even President Trump's own cybersecurity chief, overseeing our elections, said it was the most secure election in American history, and summarily was let go. Let me say it again. His own cybersecurity chief, overseeing this election, said it was the most secure in American history. You know, respecting the will of the people is at the heart of our democracy, even when we find those results hard to accept. But that's the obligation of those who've taken on a sworn duty to uphold the Constitution. 4 years ago, when I was a sitting vice president of the United States, it was my responsibility to announce the tally of the Electoral College votes in the joint session of Congress that voted to elect Donald Trump. I did my job. And I'm pleased, but not surprised, by the number of my former Republican colleagues in the Senate who have acknowledged already the results of the Electoral College. I thank them, and I'm convinced we can work together for the good of the nation on many subjects. That's the duty owed to the people, to our Constitution, to our history. You know, in this battle for the soul of America, democracy prevailed. We, the people, voted. Faith in our institutions held. The integrity of our elections remains intact. And now it's time to turn the page, as we've done throughout our history, to unite, to heal. As I said in this campaign, I will be president for all Americans. I'll work just as hard for those of you who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did. There's urgent work in front of us, getting this pandemic under control and getting the nation vaccinated against this virus, delivering immediate economic help so badly needed by so many Americans who are hurting today, and then building our economy back better than it ever was. In doing so, we need to work together to give each other a chance to lower the temperature. And most of all, we need to stand in solidarity as fellow Americans, to see each other, our pains, our struggles, our hopes, and our dreams. We're a great nation. We're good people. We may come from different places, hold different beliefs, but we share in common a love for this country, a belief in its limitless possibilities. For we, the United States of America, has always set the example for the world for a peaceful transition of power. We'll do so again. I know the task before us won't be easy. It's tempered by the pain so many of us are feeling. Today, our nation passed a grim milestone: 300,000 deaths due to this COVID virus. My heart goes out to each of you in this dark winter of the pandemic, about to spend the holidays and the new year with a black hole in your hearts, without the ones you loved at your side. My heart goes out to all of you who have fallen in hard times through no fault of your own, unable to sleep at night, staring at the ceiling, and weighed down by the worry of what tomorrow will bring for you, and equally important, for your family. But we've faced difficult times before in our history. I know we'll get through this one, but together. That's how we get through it, together. So as we start the hard work to be done, may this moment give us the strength to rebuild this house of ours upon a rock that can never be washed away. As in the prayer of St. Francis, for where there is discord, union, where there is doubt, faith, where there is darkness, light. This is who we are as a nation. This is the America we love. And that is the America we're going to be. So thank you all. May God bless you. And may God protect our troops and all those who stand watch over our democracy. Thank you.
Folks, that was President-elect Joe Biden speaking from Wilmington, Delaware, where after today in Electoral College met in state capitals across the country and where he received 306 Electoral College votes. Man, Teresa, what it's like to have a president give a speech that's presidential.
Refreshing, invigorating, all the adjectives that is necessary for our leadership in this country in order to move forward. I mean, you know, he talked about the soul of the nation. He talked about his plan of moving forward. It was very clear, concise, and on point. And this is the time that we need it. We are moving into another phase in this country where we are talking about fixing the problems that we've all had to endure in the last 3 years, 4 years really, since Donald Trump was elected, but also identifying some of those fears and some of those issues and also providing solutions. And that's where I think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris comes into play, where leadership, if we didn't notice it before, this is the time we're really going to notice it. So it was just very refreshing just to see a president that is willing and able to articulate what it is he's going to do and how he's going to scale back the unnecessariness of the Trump administration.
Julian, you heard President-elect Joe Biden talk about surpassing 300,000 COVID-19 deaths in the United States. Also, the Pfizer vaccine rolled out from various places on yesterday. We've seen folks being administered this particular vaccine. I mean, it shows you again just the stark difference in listening to Trump and his minions and listening to professional, qualified, smart, dignified, sobering voices. And I think come January 20th, you're going to see a completely different governmental reaction than the absolute shit show we've seen since January in this country.
You know, Joe Biden comes to the table calm, moderate. There are no antics in his toolbox. We have had 4 years worth of antics. We've had tantrums, we've had name calling, we've had nonsense. Now we have a grown, mature man who comes to us, and it's a shame that you have to say that the president is grown and mature, because the president should always be grown and mature. But we haven't had that. We've got someone who comes, he speaks calmly, he talks about pulling people together, he talks about what needs to happen. He's aware of the coronavirus in a way that the previous one was not. But it's not just the coronavirus. He's aware about the hundreds of thousands of people who are not eating, who may be evicted, and his tone and tenor are empathetic to that. So this is, as Teresa, this is so refreshing to see. It's just so refreshing to see. And at the same time, this man is going to need support. Within the Democratic Party, there are a lot of differences. Young people have not seen anyone like them on the cabinet. Where's Buttigieg? Progressive people have not seen anyone like them on the cabinet. And Biden not only has to be grown, mature, calm, and moderate, but he has to also bring all these wings of the party together.
Well, it is, look, expect more antics. Expect the crazy, deranged Trump folks to do some stupid stuff. You heard what Carl Racine, the AG for the District of Columbia, you heard what he actually had to say. And I think that's what we can expect. I think, look, he's a loser. He's a sore loser. He can't accept the fact that he actually got beat, that he lost the popular vote twice. Now he can't accept this electoral college defeat. And so Donald Trump is exactly who we thought he was, who he has shown us to be.
You know, Roland, if you elect a clown, expect a circus. If you elect a clown, expect a circus.
Well,
and that's what we've seen.
But actually, I think this goes even further. I think that we've certainly elected a clown, but no one thought the entire Republican Party apparatus would be a part of the clown show.
Right. Yep. And that, you
Teresa,
know,
go
that
ahead.
the most disappointing part is because all the conservative values, all the American democracy, all the, you know, Christ first, it's like it almost went out the window when Donald Trump came in, and it just changed people's ideology or brought out the best in them. So again, this has been a wake-up call for everybody. Yeah, this is the best in the Republican Party. This is the best in those Republicans.
What do you think was the worst of them, Teresa? Not the best, but the worst. You think this is the best of them?
So here's why. So here, let me be very clear. This is the best of the Republicans that the people needed to see. Because I think far too long, people have always been shaded and coded by this perception of the value system they were giving. And so people ultimately thought that was what they were getting out of their elected official. But essentially, Donald Trump changed that in the last 4 years and showed who they actually were. This was their actual best. This is what they were at home talking at the kitchen table about, right? How to change the system into their best interest. And I think people actually seen that. But for those who didn't fall into the trap, right, we got John Kasich, Republican governor out of Ohio. And we have so many others that just said, no, that's not really who I am, and that's not what I signed up for. So for those small portions of elected officials who are Republican that said, no, I'm not going into this type of culture, we have seen the results.
Well, you know, there aren't, you say there's so many. There are not so many. You can count them on your hands. If 130 Republicans would sign on to that Texas garbage legislation, then this really does speak to the bankrupt, broken, sick party that would rather throw democracy down the drain than to deal with reality.
Well, I say so much because some of them have actually shifted their position. Not on this piece of legislation.
Teresa, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so not on this direct piece of legislation. I'm talking about over time. I think some of them had started out with Trump, and then some of them just, once he was a little too off the rails, they decided to just scale back and really reevaluate their principles. So those are the Republicans I'm talking about.
What principles? They have no principles, Teresa. They have no principles. How do 130 members of Congress sign on to a piece of a lawsuit that a Texas under indictment, I can't use my language, under indictment individual brings to stop the election, and these people who know better sign on to it? Don't say principles in the same sentence as those people.
Yeah, yeah. The reality is they have no principles, and so trust me, I'm just telling everybody, expect more crazy from Trump and his maggots between now and Inauguration Day. All right, folks, certainly some sad news. We lost two cultural icons over the weekend. First up, country music legend Charlie Pride died at the age of 86 from COVID-related illness. He, of course, died at his home, longtime home, in Dallas. He was a country music star who broke many barriers. In 2000, Pride was the first black artist inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. In 1971, became the first black performer to win the CMA's coveted Entertainer of the Year. Between 1969 and 1983, Charlie Pride amassed 29 #1 Billboard country singles and became the first black act to win a Grammy in a country category, of course, which was Best Male Country Vocal Performance. For his 1971 album, Charlie Pride sings heart songs. He leaves behind his wife, Rosine, as well as their 3 children. We also, folks, lost to COVID an actress, 76-year-old Carol Sutton. Many of us remember her, of course, from Steel Magnolias, Queen Sugar, and Lovecraft Country. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell spoke highly of Sutton in a tweet stating, quote, "Carol Sutton was practically the queen of New Orleans theater, having graced the stages across the city for decades." Sutton leaves her 2 children, Archie and Anya. Folks, that is it for us. I want to thank Teresa, I want to thank Julian and Joseph Williams as well for joining us. Of course, we are here in Atlanta, Georgia, covering the Georgia Senate runoff race. It has been quite the busy time for us here in Atlanta. Tomorrow, of course, we'll be at the rally of Joe Biden. He, of course, is going to be coming to town tomorrow, and he is going to be here, again, campaigning on behalf of Raphael Warnock as well as John Ossoff. We have, what we've done is, folks, trying to bring you the kind of information that's necessary to what's going on here and really being on the ground. So, it's one thing to have folks who are talking about this just sitting in studios, but we want to be able to cover the necessary things for you. This is some video here we shot of us being out there at the Ossoff Warnock rally today that took place at Turner Field. And if you want to actually see that particular rally, all you got to do is just simply go to our YouTube channel and you'll actually see that full rally as well. And so again, today we had Warnock and Andrew Young at the voting booth, and of course we had the Ossoff rally in Gwinnett County, and then of course we had that rally. So tomorrow, look for us to be live streaming the rally of Joe Biden coming to Georgia, a state that he won, to campaign on behalf of John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. Folks, we appreciate all of your support. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. For us to be able to put on this production, to do this kind of show. Look, let's be real clear. We aren't seeing all these other black media people out here on the ground covering this like we are. That's why Roland Martin Unfiltered needs your support. You can support us via Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. Of course, paypal.me/RMartinUnfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You also, of course, you can support us via Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. You can also send us a money order to New Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. We are close to our goal of having 20,000 of you become members of our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to have 20,000 of our supporters contribute a minimum of $50 each, of course, which comes out to be $1 million. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. And again, there's some people, if you can't afford that people have given less. We appreciate that. 25, 10, 5, as little as $1. And then, of course, we've had people give a lot more than that. And we thank all of you who have given above and beyond that $50. Some of you have given $500, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, one person $30,000, because they believe in the mission of Roland Martin Unfiltered. And that is for us to be able to have a news source that speaks to our issues, our concerns, and being completely unapologetic. And that's why it is called Roland Martin Unfiltered. So please support what we do. None of this stuff is free, but I'm telling you right now, it makes a huge difference for us to be able to tell our story where we control the narrative and we're getting the unvarnished truth when it comes to these issues. And so, again, please support us. Again, if you're on YouTube, you can give right there on YouTube. You can also give on Facebook as well. And so a lot of y'all been watching for free. Look, I totally understand. There's some people, a lot of people are having very difficult times, but if you can support us, we certainly appreciate it if you would. All right, folks, that is it for me. We're going to get some rest, but long day today, long day tomorrow, as we continue our coverage around the clock of the Georgia Senate runoff. I'm Roland Martin signing off from Atlanta. I'll see you tomorrow. Holla!